It's time now for our second look through the day's papers with Erin Ogunki. And Erin, you're starting with concern here in France about cyber attacks that are targeting some of the country's hospitals.
Yeah, that's right, Thomas. So French papers have been focused on growing numbers of ransom attacks all week. And today, Libération, French paper Libération, dedicated the front page of its paper to those targeting hospitals, as you say, Thomas. The paper says that there have already been 7 ransomware attacks against various hospitals across the country since the beginning of the year alone. Now, as a reminder, ransomware attacks are essentially digital hostage-taking, whereby computer systems are blocked until a ransom, which is usually a large sum of money, is paid. More concretely, ransomware attacks against hospitals can cause computers to shut down, interrupt internet access, can force the cancellations of surgeries, medical appointments, and even coronavirus vaccinations. Now, these are obviously events that can have catastrophic effects for patients. Germany, for example, recorded one of the world's first casualties linked to a cyber ransomware attack against a hospital last September. The paper says that hospitals in general are an easy target because they are particularly underprepared and not as protected as companies, for example, to confront cyber threats. Libération does note, however, that French hospitals do not ever pay ransom money to these attackers. And for this, Macron announced they instead rely on cybersecurity professionals to tackle the issue. Macron did announce on Thursday a $1 billion investment, which will be used throughout the next 4 years in order to accelerate France's national response to cyber threats.
OK, well, staying in France, President Macron has also stepped up calls for Western countries to send an urgent supply of Covid-19 vaccines to poorer nations. Erin, tell us more about that.
Yes, in an exclusive interview with the British paper, the Financial Times, on the cover today, President Macron suggested that Europe and the United States transfer between 3 and 5% of their stock of vaccinations to the African continent. Now, he has described the inequitable distribution of vaccinations as a, quote, unprecedented acceleration of global inequality, though it's worth mentioning that politics do at least partially explain his call. President Macron has said that African nations are being offered vaccinations at a much lower price by Russia and China, and so his proposal, of course, is to try and counterbalance those two countries' influence across the continent. It will not be easy, though, because the United States has already rejected Macron's plea, saying that it will not donate any COVID-19 vaccination doses to developing countries until there is a plentiful domestic supply of inoculations.
Now, Erin, let's look at another story today, and that's the row between the Australian government and Facebook.
Yes, this made the cover of British paper The Guardian today. The paper writes that the Australian government has thus far successfully resisted caving to pressure from Facebook, which actually blocked all media content on its platform, this in response to an Australian law that would require tech companies to start paying for news content. Now, Australian lawmakers say the bill is simply aimed at leveling the playing field between tech firms and struggling publishers who, of course, over the past decade have lost a lot of revenue to tech giants. Well, for the Sydney Morning Herald in Australia, while Facebook may indeed be right that publishers depend on the platform to reach, a larger pool of viewers, it argues that most publishers would perhaps would like to move away from relying on social media giants like Facebook in order to get an audience. The paper says that the growing row then in Australia will be a living experiment into how powerful Facebook really is, as well as whether there is life after Facebook for publishers who are trying to find alternative business models and alternative ways of reaching an audience.
And finally, Erin, a new college program in the US could bring big changes for the country's best universities.
That's right, Thomas. The New York Times published this morning an in-depth piece on an experiment, essentially, which is aimed at opening access to Ivy League schools, which are more or less the best universities in the United States, to disadvantaged students from across the country, and really kind of redefining what is possible from students who come from disadvantaged backgrounds, both socioeconomically or in terms of ethnic diversity. Now, the initial initiative is run by a New York-based nonprofit, which is called the National Education Equity Lab, and it has already enrolled more than 1,000 high school students in 75 of the country's poorest schools across the country into college courses with which it has a partnership. Now, these colleges include, again, the nation's most prestigious universities, Harvard, Yale, and proponents of the program say that it will not only boost these students' college applications by giving them credit from college courses while they're still in high school, but will also kind of give them the confidence to realize that they are capable of gaining access to some of these institutions that are often seen as closed off to them. And they're also looking to challenge this, what a lot of higher education institutions have claimed over the years, according to the New York Times, which is that they want diversity, but they simply don't know how to find it. They don't know how to reach out to lower income students or students of certain ethnic backgrounds. So the idea is to kind of pursue the best students in the country from these areas with using the same enthusiasm with which universities often pursue athletes, for example, in the United States. And so to conclude, it's already had striking results, Thomas. 86% of the students that have done it have passed their courses thus far, which is a very promising score for the first couple of years.
Absolutely. Erin Ogunki with another press review. Thank you very much. It's time now for a very quick break, but I'm back in just a few moments' time with another look at today's news. Do stay with us here on France 24.